Okay, so we'll get started because I was running a little late. I did want to start out though with a little icebreaker in honor of Earth Day, because Earth Day was this past Thursday. Just put something in the comments about something you appreciate about the Earth. Anything you appreciate about the Earth. And then while you're doing that, I'll make sure to check back and read those because I'm interested to hear what you have to say. But I'm going to start out with what we're making today. So we're going to be making vegetable stock, and we're going to be doing that using vegetable scraps that we have from cooking in the kitchen. So I'm going to share my screen. I have a little infograph to share. Share screen. Desktop. Well, that's okay, Nikki. I was also running a little behind today. Okay, so can everyone see? Can you see that? Okay. Okay, so yes or no?
I can't see your infographic. Now I can.
Now you can? Okay. Oh, by the way, I have an assistant here today with me. Come over here. This is Ileana. She's going to be my sous chef and my assistant. She's going to be checking all the comments.
Yep. Hi.
Yeah. So in this little infograph, I really like this because, oh, someone said hi to you. I really like this because it shows the difference between what you would put in a soup versus what you would put in vegetable stock or vegetable broth, which is what we're making today. And I usually buy mine from the store. I usually buy something like this, but it's actually really easy to make, and it's not something I've really done that often, although it makes a lot of sense because I cook using a lot of vegetables, so I have a lot of vegetable scraps when I cook. And it's super, super easy. So in this info graph, you can see the harvest soup is up on the top right-hand corner. And in your soup, you would put things like chopped up carrots, the white part of an onion, diced squash. You would put the leaves of an herb, chopped celery, and then peeled garlic. And so like for your stock, you're taking all of the stuff that you have left over from that, like your carrot peels from when you peel your carrot, the green parts of the onion that we don't eat, the seeds and the pulp of the squash that we don't eat, which is actually something that I didn't really realize that, oh yeah, you could put like pulp in a stock. And then the stems of the herbs, and then the green tops of the celery that we don't eat, and the peels of the garlic as well. So I have for here, I have my, let me actually stop this right now. So I have my vegetable scraps that I'm going to use right here. In this are actually some clementines. You can use fruit too. Citrus is really good in stock. I have lemon. I have some beet peels, some arugula stems, and there's also some leaves on here. I also have onion peel, a little bit of onion still in there. This is onion, and then I also have garlic peel. I have pepper still with the seeds on it. You can go ahead and leave the seeds on that. You don't even have to worry about separating those out. Radish, that kind of went bad. I think that's it, but that's like a pretty good mixture for some vegetable stock. I do have a butternut squash. I didn't get to use it, but I was going to use the pulp from this butternut squash, and then I'm also going to probably use this to make an actual soup with it. And then there is one more thing I want to share. Actually, no, I don't. So there are some other basic ingredients you can use for your stock besides scraps. You don't have to. They are, though, as like a base for your stock, carrots, onions, some stalks of celery, and then also like some peppercorns and salt for flavor. So like the basic ingredients, I will share this with you actually. So the basic ingredients as a base for your stock are a gallon cold water, which equals 16 cups of water. So you want to get like a nice big pot like this that'll be able to hold all that. 2 carrots, an onion, 4 stalks of celery, a teaspoon of peppercorns, and salt isn't on here, but we thought that that would add some extra flavor to the stock. And then in this little cloud over here, carrot peels, garlic peels, celery leaves, pulp from pumpkins, squash peels. Oh yeah, you could also use the peel from the squash too. Kale stems, spinach stems, beet peels, tops of leeks, herb stems. Yeah, like I was kind of just going over. And like anything else, any other kind of vegetable scraps that you have that you can think of, go on and put that in there. So the way we're going to do this, I'm going to actually demonstrate now. Oh, and we wanted to emphasize that this is like a very freestyle stock. The process of making this is very like open to interpretation. It's not an exact recipe, which makes it really easy and like very adaptable to whatever you have in your kitchen. So I'm going to go over to the other screen where Ileana is right now. And over. So with Megan, anybody that's been on Family Fun in the Kitchen with Megan knows that Megan goes over knife skills pretty much every single time that she does Family Fun in the Kitchen. Oh, first, she'll tell you to wash your hands, which I've already done. And so when we're using a knife in the kitchen for safety purposes, could anyone tell me how you hold your hand when you're cutting a knife? Like, do you keep it flat out? Like, what is the word for how you hold your hand? Tell me if anybody knows. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. But we don't have the sound on that one.
Oh, they can hear me on the other one?
I think so.
Has anyone commented?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, the answer is bear claw. So you like hold your hand like a bear claw, and it keeps it so that your fingers are kind of like straight on with your knuckles, so that when you're cutting, you're not like the knife doesn't have anything to like be able to cut, so it keeps the tips of your fingers safe. So I'm gonna cut a few of these carrots and celery sticks to put in the stock. I'm just gonna slice it. Illy, do you wanna maybe fill the water up while I'm doing this? So Illy's gonna go ahead and fill this pot with cold water for us. Do a few stalks of celery.
You said 16.
16 cups. So yeah, a gallon
Is a gallon.
is 16 cups. And you'll see the one we have going on in the background, which I'll talk about in a little bit. I'm gonna cut up like four of these celery stalks, and then I have baby carrots. I don't have big carrots, so I'm gonna also cut up a few of these baby carrots. When I cut, I go in like a very fluid motion. It's like the knife is gliding on the cutting board. Two more of these. I'm going to start to add my celery and carrots to the water. Just drop it in there. Then I'm going to add the onion. I can also add the peel since we're making vegetable stock, right? So I don't have to even waste any part of the onion right now when I'm doing this. When I cut an onion, I like to slice kind of like downward from the stem and strip. Like all the way through. And then I cut in like a crisscross pattern. To make little chunks. Toss that in there. I'm only going to use half, I think, this time because I have a lot of onion peels and a little bit of onion in my scrap container, but I'm going to peel it actually. So that when I go to use it, I don't have any waste. Then I'm just going to add the rest of these scraps in here. Put it on the burner. So the trick with this is when you're putting the water in, I guess it could really be any temperature. You don't want it to be really hot. You want it to be cool water, pretty cool water from the tap or filtered water if you have filtered water. And the way you make stock is you just bring up the temperature really slowly. You don't want it to be on a too high temperature. You don't want it to boil. You want it to kind of simmer on medium heat because that will really extract all of the flavors and the nutrients from the vegetables. So I'm going to turn the burner on. About medium. And then I'm just going to let it do its thing. And you want to let it go for probably about up to 3 hours. It's a really slow process. So do it sometime when you know that you're going to be at home and you have time to just let it do its thing. Okay, so while that starts to get going, I'm going to talk about composting. There's a bin. Oh, no, there's a bin. And then I'm going to get the. So you saw my little container that had my scraps in it was like my compost, more or less. I just was keeping it in the fridge so that it didn't smell or attract any bugs, and planned to make the stock when it was full. There are other ways that you can compost as well. So yeah, these are some ways that you can store your scrap. So this one was in the freezer, which is a more long-term way of storing your scraps. Also keeps bugs from getting to it and keeps it from smelling even more so than being in the fridge. So the freezer is a good option. My friends have this little fancy composter. It has a filter in the lid and it gets stored. You can either store this in the fridge or out of the fridge. They store it in the fridge so it doesn't attract flies, because while it doesn't smell, it could attract fruit flies if it's not actually in the fridge. And this thing cost about 20 to 30 bucks, but I think like a good option or a good alternative to this would be one of those soup containers. Yeah, you get from like the Chinese food. It's nice and tall. You could keep it in the fridge or the freezer. It's a good alternative, or just a Tupperware container is a good alternative to this. I have another little infographic to share about composting. So in lieu of Earth Day, I'm going to talk about a little bit about composting, which goes along with using our kitchen scraps for stock, which is like kind of recycling and composting at the same time. So composting is an aerobic decomposition of organic materials by microorganisms, and aerobic means that it needs oxygen. So it transforms raw materials like leaves, grass clippings, garden trimmings, food scraps, animal manure, and agricultural residues into compost, which is a valuable earthy smelling soil conditioner teeming with life. So the compost pretty much gets like, it transforms from just food scraps into something that you can put on your soil that gives it nutrients and just like more components to it that makes it better for growing food. So every year, US landfills and trash incinerators receive 167 million tons of garbage. That's a lot. And 50% of municipal garbage set at the curb is compostable. 21% is food scraps alone, which I did not know, which was kind of a large number for me. 15% is paperboard, 8% is yard trimmings, and 8% is wood waste. So it talks also about how landfills and incinerators can be dangerous. So every bag that's thrown out contributes to pollution of the surrounding soil, air, and water, contributes to climate change, and it contributes to health hazards to humans and animals. So what composting does for the soil, it enhances it, and it also protects our watersheds. And healthy soils are essential for protecting our watersheds, and compost is the best way to add organic matter to the soil, which is vital for the soil. When added to the soil, compost can filter out pollutants by 60 to 95%, which is awesome. So it improves biological, chemical, and physical characteristics of soil. So it protects against desertification and soil erosion. So desertification would be like the drying of the soil. In that way, it also helps with our watersheds and enhances plant disease and suppression, increases resilience to food floods and droughts, increases soil fertility, increases microbial activity, converts nitrogen into a more stable and less mobile form, and phosphorus into a less soluble form, reduces the needs for chemical amendments to the soil. So you can use compost instead of using like chemical fertilizers for the soil, and compost is a lot better for the soil. Improves water retention. It helps the soil hold water, improves the overall structure of the soil. It adds humus. This is a pretty good science word. It keeps soil particles stuck together, and it also improves the ability to store nutrients. And it serves as like a filter and a sponge for the soil. Okay, so composting, it also protects the climate. So food scraps in landfills generates methane, a greenhouse gas with global warming potential. That's 85% more, 84 times more potent than CO2 in the short term. And incinerators also emit chemical pollutants. So when we are using our food scraps for our vegetable stock, in my mind, we're like breaking them down a little bit, right? So we're kind of, so when they get put, if they do like end up getting put into landfills, they would probably generate less methane than they would if they went in just as they were originally. So in that sense, you are helping with the breakdown of those things. So it should produce less greenhouse gases to put into the environment. But the alternative is, of course, to like transfer it into actual compost. And there are a few options you have for that. So if you collect your vegetable scraps, there are like a few places that might accept them for you to bring them. If you don't have the ability to like have your own composter and have compost for like garden beds or whatever you have in your backyard, you could bring them to farms. You could bring them to a outdoor learning center like Greater New York Conservancy, school gardens. I have a few school gardens. If you wanted to bring some of your compost, your food scraps to the school garden for me to compost, I would love that. Reach out to connect with me. Community gardens could be a great place for compost. Community gardens often start compost piles for then the community gardeners to use on their beds. And yeah, those are all great options, and so that we can create more compost. But when converted into compost and applied to the land, it sequesters carbon. One research project found that half an inch of compost applied to rangeland sequestered the equivalent of 1 metric ton of CO2 per hectare over 3 years. Just know that that is a lot of CO2. And this last part is about how composting can create jobs. So there are people that are employed at incinerators and landfills. But on a per ton basis, making compost alone employs 2 times more workers than landfills and 4 times more than jobs at incinerators. So this could be a good option. Green infrastructure. So, and these people that manufacture compost as their job, they use compost in green infrastructure. So green infrastructure uses compost in rain gardens, green roofs, bioswales, vegetated retaining walls, highway embankments, and they're used to control soil erosion and stormwater to, protect the watershed, and it creates more jobs. So things that you can do. So you can learn how to compost at home, which we talked about, and how to amend your soil with compost, which is really easy. You just put your compost on top of your garden bed and like mix it in with a rake and make it smooth. Install a rain garden. You could advocate for policies and programs to expand composting. There are some cities and towns that do have compost collection. I think maybe for a small fee. I know Newark does not have that, but it could be something that is advocated for if that's something that you think that you would want to start in Newark. Promote school garden, farm, and other community-based composting. Get involved. So get your local farmers elected, public works, parks, agricultural, and economic development officials involved, and make or buy compost. And buying compost also will create a demand for compost, which will, create more jobs that involve compost. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing now. And we are going to move on, I think, to talking about when our stock is done cooking. So I have one that we started a few hours ago at like 9 o'clock. So it's been going for about 2.5 hours. Remember I said that we want it to go for up to 3 hours. Yeah, this one does. So this one, it uses about half the amount of water that we put into this bigger pot. Is this bigger pot going? Yeah, it's just going really slow, and it's more water, so it's going to take longer to come up. So let's see if you can all see this. This pot that we have going, you can see that the vegetables are kind of translucent now. They've lost a lot of their color, whereas this one, the vegetables still have a lot of their color. So that's a good way to tell if they're retaining, if like this one has all its nutrients and all its color and flavor, you can kind of tell that like via the color. And this one has like lost its color, so the nutrients and the flavor has now seeped into the water. So the next step for this broth is to just strain it, which I could show you how to do. I set up a little strainer. Can you turn the camera just this way so they can see? Yeah.
Okay.
Or like at least point it at it.
Oh yeah, it's working.
Okay. And then I'm gonna bring this over to the sink. Can we switch places? Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't want to burn you. And I set up this little colander that's in a bowl, so I'm just gonna dump it in here. It smells really good. And then if I pull this out, oh, that's nice and dark. You can see how like translucent the vegetables are. And then we have this, which is a nice dark stock. You can use this for soups. I usually sometimes put vegetable stock in some of my foods as well when I'm cooking. And then for this, I'm going to add it. I'm probably just going to add it to this composter over here. That spoon, please. This is why I need a stew chef. You don't need one, but just make it easier. So I'm just gonna scoop it down in here. And I also did want to highlight a little bit about kind of the difference between keeping the food scraps in like a container like this and something like this. It could be used as the same thing, but this one, so for these, we just have like fruit and vegetable scraps. And then this one, there's other things in here like coffee grounds if you're a big coffee drinker. There are also some, it looks like disposable, like some places use packing peanuts that are actually made of like cornstarch. So these are in here as well. And these will be something that'll break down. And yeah. Ellie, do you know what they do with this once it's full?
They take it to the garden.
Oh, they take it to their community garden. How perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that will be brought to the community garden. It's just like a little bit extra of a step, but it'll be made into some really nice compost for the community garden. Are they a part of that community garden? No. I'm talking to you.
No, I'm saying they don't answer.
Oh, they don't.
Join them.
Oh, okay. So yeah, they're not a part of it yet, but they're trying to be. And oh, when you're storing your vegetable stock liquid, store it in either a Tupperware container or ideally a glass container. It will keep for 5 to 7 days in the fridge. And if you put it in the freezer, it'll store for about 6 months in the freezer at best quality. But it is also safe to eat beyond those 6 months if you end up keeping it longer. It's just maybe it'll get like more freezer burnt or something, a little bit less quality at that point. And I think that is all that I have. I know it's a little quicker today. Vegetable stock isn't a super involved process, but if there's any questions, I'll give you a few minutes to ask any questions. Yeah, I know I'm not Megan. Megan's no longer with us. Unfortunately, we miss her. We love her. She was great. Show some love for her in the chat, because if she's not here right now, she was going to try to tune in, but if she isn't able to, I'm sure she'll watch it after the fact. So if you want to send some love to her in the comments, she would really appreciate that. But yeah. So the Conservancy does have some things coming up. So we have a seedling giveaway coming up within the next month, so be on the lookout for that. And we also are still doing a seed giveaway. And there are forms for the seed giveaway on our website at citybloom.org if you need any seeds for your garden. Nothing. Okay. So if there are no questions, oh, Nikki. Let me see. Do we need to keep, oh, okay, two good questions. Okay. How long does it take for scraps to turn into soil? Should we put the compost on top of our garden when all the food in it is still recognizable? So the answer to the first part of that question is it's going to take a little while for it to turn into soil. It takes like a few months, and it also depends on the balance of what your compost is at. So compost needs like a balance of, without getting into, it needs a balance of like brown and green. So, and brown and green have like different, they have different like nutrient components. So you need like a balance of both of them in order to have your compost break down as fast as it can. Adding water to it helps. Temperature also helps. And let me see. So browns are carbon rich compost materials, and greens are nitrogen rich compost materials. So greens would be like our vegetable scraps. Grass clippings, coffee grounds are actually something green. You can put hair in if you want, fresh leaves, tea leaves, coffee filters. You can some of them you can compost, fruit peels, and then browns would be stuff like dry leaves, wood chips, twigs, straw, tree bark, eggshells, cardboard, shredded newspaper, and pine needles. And you need like a mixture of both of them in order for it to work. For me, it'll take a few months. And you shouldn't put it on the top of your garden when all the food in it is still recognizable. You should wait for it to break down into something that pretty much just looks like a soil. What you can do though, in order to use it before like the entire compost is broken down. So I have like a pile of compost in my school gardens, and I have a sifter, which is just made of like a box made of wood with a screen nailed to it. And I'll just like pour the compost onto the sifter and like sift out all of the stuff that's still recognizable, so that I'm still able to use some of the compost while it's breaking down, and I don't have to wait for like the entire pile to break down before using it. And that's a really good option. They're decently easy to make, The other question is, do we need to keep composting scraps in the refrigerator or can they be left out? I missed some parts of the session. I would, so if you have something like this, you could leave them out because this is a like sealed container with a filter in it. You could leave it out of the refrigerator. It might attract some fruit flies, especially in the warm summer months. So just be like a little mindful of that. But if you're doing it in something like a Tupperware container, you want to put it in the fridge or the freezer because it's going to start to stink, and it'll probably also attract bugs, but it'll really start to stink. Yeah. I live in an apartment. Is the Conservancy open? Yes. So we can take scraps at the Conservancy. We have a compost pile there. Let me put actually my contact information so that we can set up a time for you to bring. We're not technically open right now, but so I'm there a few times a week and Keith is also there a few times a week. So you can come by during any of those times to drop off some food scraps for the compost pile.
We have a question here.
Wait, what's the question?
Deborah asked, can I use banana peels and potato peel in the garden mix with my dirt?
Do you mean to add for your compost, or do you mean to just like put in the dirt, in the soil, like along with your food, with your stuff that you're growing? If you could clarify for us.
Yes. Was the response, yes. And then Maria asked, can I use fruit peels?
Yeah, you can. Yes, you can use all of the fruit peels, potato peels, and what was the other thing? Banana peels in your compost. I wouldn't probably just like throw them straight into the garden bed because that'll like attract animals. I'm not sure what you meant, but you can definitely use those things in your compost.
Maria asked, like apples and oranges.
Yeah, apples and oranges are great. Yeah, you can even throw the seeds right in there too, so you don't have to waste like the. You can just throw the core part right after you eat the apple into there. Is anyone making any vegetable stock right now? I'm interested to hear that. It smells really good in this kitchen right now. And I'm probably, with this squash that I have, I'm probably going to make a soup, and I'll probably use the vegetable stock that we just made for the soup. Also, if you have anything to say about what you appreciate about the earth in honor of Earth Day, also post that. Yeah, cool. Yeah, Nikki will be making some socks soon, now that she knows how many scraps she can use, and also has a butternut squash that she'll try to make chili with. I wonder, Nikki, if you were on for when Megan made this like butternut squash skillet. So it's like really similar to what you're talking about with the chili. It's really good. Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate everyone who's here being here. Great. Yeah, we were actually talking about some things that we could do to try to make it more accessible for Spanish speakers, like whether we could put subtitles or something. So we're going to try to figure that out. Oh yeah, so Nikki will be using a variation of the chili in the superhero cookbook. I believe the skillet dish is online on one of our family fun in the kitchen. Check the YouTube page, the Greater New York Conservancy YouTube page. it might be on there. It might also be in like the archive on Facebook. But I know all of the Family Fun in the Kitchens are posted to YouTube. And yeah, every day, good point. Every day is Earth Day.
Shannon, this can't boil. It shouldn't boil, right?
No, it shouldn't boil. So another thing, it should be on like a simmer, which is like a really low boil. It shouldn't actually get to a boil. You want it to happen really slowly and gently. So it's like a really like gentle boil, almost like just below the boiling point. Okay. So again, yeah, Nikki, I've recognized you from Family Fun in the Kitchen. Yes, we were also Miss Megan, but we're also really grateful for her new opportunity, or happy for her new opportunity. And thank you. Yeah, I will probably see you again. Okay, we are going to sign off. Say bye, Ellie. Bye. Thank you, Ellie, for all of her help. And we will see you. Bye.